All right, so last time we left off with GBP AUD. That ended up being a losing pair, actually. It was, I think, the third or the fourth losing pair, but overall we are at 210 trades for now. We've got a 37.1% win rate. We have around a 56 R gain up till now. But we've got quite a few pairs left. I believe we've got 8 or 9, maybe even more pairs left. So we're going to start with, or we're going to continue with NZD-JPY for now. NZD-JPY, that's what we are going to do. Right, I am going to actually be keeping it on my second monitor. Normally I do split screen, and I'll have like one half of my screen be the Discord in which I post the trades, but I've actually got a new monitor. I've got 3 monitors now, so I'm actually going to keep it on my other monitor. I'll show it afterwards, so just so I can recap real quick. But right now I've got 3 monitors, which, you know, makes it a little easier. A little overkill, to be honest, but all right, let's make sure that we zoom in correctly first, though, before we even start testing, because I noticed that I was a little bit too zoomed out there. All right, first thing that I see is that short position here. Pretty simple trade. There we go. All right, that ends up being a missed trade. We're going to delete that. See what happens after. You can either, in this case, by the way, you can take it from here or here. It doesn't really matter too much, kind of is personal preference. I'm going to be taking it from here. Although that one candle does mess it up, because this candle, it looks a little weird, but that's most likely gone relatively close and then gone pretty much all the way to target. And that's something that I like to avoid. In this case, I think that would have been a break-even trade. Yeah, it would have been a break-even trade, but still, that's just something that I like to avoid. This is a miss because I skipped forward too fast. Looking at this one now, see what we get. Let's wait for price to retrace, and it does not actually end up retracing. It's a missed trade. Moving on. Then we got this trade over here that we were looking at. Also got to wait for price to retrace first before we place that. Trust me, that saves you a lot of time. Otherwise, you're going to be deleting the order so many times. So this month has actually been, or last month was actually pretty good. What was it, 14 RR that we made? I think, I'm not sure, I'll have to take a look at my journal, but it was around 14 RR, I believe. All right, that ends up being the first trade. Let's say -1. I'm going to post that real quick. Moving on. Actually get the next trade over here. Very simple trade. I saw a video that someone sent me about someone mentioning break-evens and how you should avoid them. And it was based on literally one trade. You guys know what I think of that. I hate it when people get 1 or 2 trades and they decide to base their entire strategy off of it. That really pisses me off. It's like literally impossible to decide whether or not you're going to implement a rule based on one trade. And even then, so by the way, not just one trade, because a lot of people will be like, well, I've tested 100 times. I think it's not necessarily about how many trades you've tested. It's more so the period. This is, by the way, something I'm going to avoid. This is just sideways price action for me. It's not necessarily about how many trades you've tested. It's more so about the period of time that you're in. So what I mean by that is a lot of people will say, like, I've tested a couple hundred trades, but if that's all within the span of, when we're talking about backtesting, 6 or 7 months, it doesn't really matter. It's only when you've actually done a full year, 2 years, 3 years, where you can really talk about, you know, changing things up. Because you, for example, let's say you've got an extremely high frequency and you've got 200 trades in literally 6 months, and those 6 months might be extremely profitable, and you decide like, I'm not going to test anymore. And then you get another span of 6 months in which it might not work at all, even though you're literally doing the exact same thing. And now you might have 200 or a couple hundred trades that you backtested, but it does not really give you enough to go off. Or you need more than just an X amount of trades. You need time as well. You need to be able to, that's a break even, by the way. Yeah, that's break even. You need to be able to say like, okay, I've tested not only 1,000 trades, but I've actually tested 2 or 3 years worth of data. And only then are you actually able to make changes to your strategy. So it is a lot of work, really. One thing that I saw the other day, which has stuck with me as well, by the way, people who study real estate, a lot of people who study real estate, they end up making maybe 10, 15% returns on their investments, whatever. People who invest in ETFs end up making 5, 10% returns, whatever. The odd one here and there gets lucky with crypto and makes a couple 1,000% return. But still, on average, people spend years studying real estate, studying whatever, only to get 5 to 10% returns. And then when they start trading, they expect to hit 200R every single year without getting in a drawdown and by following some weird guru on YouTube who drives a Lamborghini. And they all expect to do that within the time span of a couple of months. That always does bother me a little bit. So I saw that and I was like, that's so underrated. Like, even John said it a while ago. The average millionaire, I believe, is 55, something like that, 55 years old. And if you're supposed to believe social media, I think we're all supposed to be millionaires by the time we're 18, according to social media. The average millionaire is 55 or something like that. Or once they turn 55, they become a millionaire. And also, one thing that's interesting, if you look at Warren Buffett, he made, I believe, over 60 or 70% of his net worth after his 65th birthday. So literally in the last 30 years, well, he's still alive. I don't know how, but he's still alive. In the last 30 years of his life, he made the majority of his net worth. Really interesting. Just brings you some perspective, really. And if we got time after this backtesting session, I'll actually pull up some track records of some really good traders who are managing, I believe, 20 or $16 million, just to kind of show you some things that you can expect and that show you what the real traders are doing who are managing, multiple millions. This is actually a little bit of a risky trade, to be honest. It's just more sideways movement. I'll actually see if I can pull that up after this backtesting session. That's really interesting to see. It's a track record of a multimillionaire investor or trader who has, I believe, 600 investors who've all invested capital into him. And his track record is publicly available. And that track record shows you exactly what you can expect in trading. So we'll see if I can find that after. This one shouldn't take too long, this session. We're halfway through the year and it's been break evens only pretty much so far. Let's see. We get a short trade over here. A little bit of an aggressive one. That ends up being our first winning trade. To be fair, I might have deleted that after getting that close to your entry and then hitting break even, but I skipped forward a little bit too fast in this case. I keep forgetting how easy it is to collect data with this strategy. Because I get a lot of messages from people who are trading other strategies as well, and they're having a really hard time collecting data. And usually it's because they do 16,000 different time frames, and they've got to wait for whatever the fuck kill zones and all that bullshit. It's really hard to collect data like that. Oh shit, what happened there? Trump say something? Very slow summer months here. Really not much going on, except for lagging FX replay. How was 2025 for you, Flora asks? It was alright, yeah. You traded the whole year. Yeah, but I did have a couple of periods in which I wasn't actively trading. I had a few family members pass away, unfortunately, so I had a couple of times where I did take a little break. Overall, it was a pretty solid year, yeah. How about you? How was it for you? I appreciate that. Thanks. It's a missed trade over there. Move on. Yeah, had some breaks, but overall a good year. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty decent. To be honest, it wasn't the best year I've had. I'll say that. It wasn't the best one, but it was all right. It was a little bit of a tough year, to be honest, especially I think the last couple of months. I'm not sure. I can't really remember, but it was a relatively rough year as opposed to my other years. Can't remember how much I did in 2024 actually. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate that. That's actually a valid short over there. That would have been a with that. No, that would have been a stop loss. I missed that because I skipped forward a little bit too fast. That would have been a valid trade for sure. The reason why it skips forward so fast all the time is because it has sort of like a delay on it. I don't know why it does, but FX replay sometimes has like a slight delay on it. And it's a little annoying to be honest, but it is what it is. What have you guys been up to lately though? I've been putting in a lot of work behind the scenes. I don't know if you guys saw, we had a new program released on the website. It is pretty cool if I say so myself. This is actually when you're looking for a reversal, you want to see a little bit of a stronger break, so I'm not going to take that. We have a short position over here. Looks like I might have missed that trade. Website looks good. Thank you. Yeah, I spent a little bit of I spent way too much time actually making that, but I think it came out pretty cool. Yeah. Did you take the 80 CAD sell? Could you send it to me? I'll take a look at it. I don't think I did, to be honest. I don't remember. I know I'm in a CAD position, but I'm not sure which one that is. I'm in a CAD short, I believe. But I'm not sure if it's 80 CAD. Let's see. No, I'm not in that. No. Whenever I'm looking at reversals, I want to see a really strong break, and that does not really count as too strong of a break for me. That makes sense. really nothing going on in this pair, honestly. 𝐆𝐶 is kind of boring. And then we are in December, and we quit on December 15th, like always. So right around here, and that's 1R gain for this year. So nothing crazy, really. 9 trades, very little trades, to be honest with you. So 9 trades brings us to a total of, let's pull it up real quick, brings us to a total of 210 trades with around a 37.1% win rate. 210 trades, 57. Oh, that should bring us to 56 or 57, but I actually forgot to add it to the session. I'm gonna pull up that track record too, by the way, that I mentioned. Let me quickly edit that session. Let's see. Strategy, and that is called YouTube. Boom, there we go. And then let's pull it up again. Here we are. 219 trades, actually, what it brings us to. Still, the win rate is pretty much the same. 219 trades. I think on average, we're going to get around 300 trades this year. That brings us to 56.77 R. So around 57 R. We've got, I believe, 9 pairs left. So my estimate is we're going to finish around 70, maybe 80, or maybe 90 R. We'll see. Actually, I'm going to pull up that track record real quick, show you what I mean. So this is that track record that I was referring to, and this is on 𝐷arwinx. It's called the Hall of Fame. You can find it online. It's pretty accessible. So first of all, when you look at this, these percentages are a little off. The reason they're a little off is because if someone deposits $500,000, all of a sudden the percentage gain is incorrect. So don't really look too much at the percentages, but do look at like the return in terms of what you see over here. And one thing that I find really interesting is if you look at it and if you count the amount of losing months this guy has in every year, it's around 3 to 4 losing months in a year, and it's around 1 or 2 break-even months every year. And this guy, by the way, is managing, let's say, $16,040,000. And this is the #1 trader on 𝐷arwinx. And this equity curve is very, very solid. But one thing that I always like to acknowledge and like to see is, for example, if you look over here, where it says all the way at the top, it says the date, where it says 3/8/2020, all the way until, what is that? 6/8/07/2021, you don't really exceed your previous highest balance. And this is what I always find really interesting. People seem to not understand this in trading, is like, you're going to have a period in which you're going to maybe be at like 100K, and then all the way until next year, you're not going to exceed that balance. And that's realistic trading. And a lot of people just don't understand that. And then ultimately, this guy made 800% in 10 years time. So that's, on average, that's 80% a year, which is insane. In 10 years time, doing 80% a year, awesome, phenomenal results. That's also why he's got $16 million under management. However, seeing that he's also able to, go through a period of not really making anything for an entire year. And that's part of trading too. And I know a lot of people will switch up their strategies and try other things literally after a month of not succeeding or not making any profit. And then you see this guy and everyone's like, I would love to have an equity curve. I would love to make 80% a year on average. Well, yeah, but 80% a year also means going through a period of trades like this. You might take 50 or 100 trades and you're not exceeding your previous highest balance. That's something I always find really interesting when you look at these professionals, these guys that are managing $10+ million, and seeing the statistics on it, and also seeing, like, for example, I think it's one of these years, like he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 losing months here, and then the year before that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losing months actually, and 1 break-even month. And then over here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 losing months in 2025. 2025 was a rough year for this guy. Still, this is the guy that's managing $16 million and who's got 80% a year on average. And I think that's something that you got to understand. Quickly interrupt. Yeah. Thomas says you always look for a strong break structure when taking. Yeah, always. Whenever I'm looking at reversals, always looking for a strong break. But understanding this and realizing this and then seeing how these guys actually approach it is a game changer, honestly. It is a game changer. Understanding this, understanding that this is the way that they look at it, this is the way that they trade. That's something you gotta understand. So I figured I just close it off with that. I think that's really important. Laura says that's a solid performance considering he's managing $16 million. It's very solid. Yeah, I agree. It's insanely good. And that's also why he's got, close to 600 investors who all invested capital onto his account. But it's, it shows you just the realism of going through prolonged periods of drawdown, which a lot of people find very difficult. And it makes sense because YouTube is filled with all these gurus that tell you that as soon as you've got more than 2 weeks of losing streaks, you should quit and you should do something else and you should try their 90% win rate strategy. But that's just not really the case. I'm not exactly sure what this guy does though, in terms of like what his approach is. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's fairly similar to what we are doing. So I think it's interesting to look at this. So it's called 𝐷ARWINx, the Hall of Fame. You can take a look at it. There's hundreds of track records on there that all show you the realism that is trading. And let's see, I'm not sure what that is. Oh, so this guy's also got $1 million on another account of his. So he's managing around $17 million in capital. And I think it's really interesting. Take a look at it. You guys have the time, take a look at it. There's a bunch of investors here that are all managing capital, that all have got very similar track records. And there's a lot of things in common. For example, the majority have got around 4 to 5 losing months in a year. So take a look at it. See if it helps you kind of ground your expectations. All right, I'm going to close off with that, guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.